Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly shir of uncovering the light of recovery from within the Torah and the light of the Torah from within recovery, in conjunction with the light revealed, which is really rooted in trying to share the light of Torah, share the or of Pnimius HaTorah in the framework of recovery, to allow recovery to meet Chasidus and for Chasidus to meet recovery. In this week's Parsha, Vayigash Elav Yehuda Vayomer Bi Adoni, what we find is, especially in context of the preparation for this encounter in the previous week's Parshas, that there is a buildup of a real moment of decision making. There is a moment of clarity that is about to emerge, that there's a cloudiness that first and foremost precedes this moment of clarity. And really, the cloudiness that precedes this moment of clarity is a cloudiness that began long ago. It's a cloudiness that began with Adam HaRishon's kind of departure out of Gan Eden, from that experience of being seduced into eating from the Eitz Hadas. It's a cloudiness that is born out of Cain and Hevel. It's a cloudiness that leads us to Noach. It's a cloudiness that brings us to Avram and to the Birur of Yitzchak and Mishmal. And it brings us to Yaakov and Esav and that Birur, and Yaakov in that place with his Shvatim, the Mitas Shlema. This split, this doubled nature of experience, this seemingly difficult, untraversable, unbearable split that operates at the heart of all things, especially the self, comes into fruition. It expresses itself. It was operant in an unconscious way from the beginning of creation, and it finds expression at each and every shlav of existence and history. But it comes into fruition with the split of the brothers in Yosef Atzadik. This split, where the body of Klal Yisrael, where the unified thing of Klal Yisrael, the thing that was holding it all together, experiences a split at the core of it. And ultimately, this split is really between Yehuda and Yosef. That Yehuda and Yosef represent two paradigmatic ways of engaging with this world. Two paradigmatic ways in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself in this world, and Memela, two paradigmatic ways in which the self can cultivate a way of looking that enables us to traverse the difficult terrain of this worldly experience. The path of Yehuda is a path of a willingness to descend down into murky territory in order to uncover the light of experience. Yehuda is not focused primarily on ensuring that things are fair or that things are exactly the way that they need to be. Yehuda is looking to ensure that the end result comes about. And in order for the end result to come about, very often things undergo a shift into a place of not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing how things are going to happen, but a singular vision of ultimately something has to happen. And the way in which that is going to happen, is not so much up to me, says Yehuda. I'm willing to do anything and everything to bring about this goal. The path of Yosef, on the other hand, is the path of what matters most is the process in which a person encounters a goal. What matters most is the specifics. What matters most is the measurements. What matters most is the reduction of self. Yehuda allows the self to express itself in the way that it needs to in this world. Yosef is the demand to express the self in alignment and in accordance with the ideals that a person carries with themselves. Yehuda is the sudden burst of enthusiasm and emotion that emerges out of a stuckness of self, where one realizes that all they have is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and without that I'm drowning. And Yosef is the more sobered experience of a mindfulness and a conscious awareness of the greatness of God. It's more of a situated way of living. And these two elements, Yehuda and Yosef, Torah and Tefillah, what I have and what I don't have, desire and presence, lack and fullness, these two paradigmatic ways of living our lives express themselves psychologically in a very deep way as well. That the perspective of Yehuda is the willingness to allow myself to navigate with the turns of life, to accept what life offers me, and to find the light of holiness and the light of refinement and the light of recovery that exists within all of those twists and turns. Not to take myself too seriously, not to get caught up in the appearance of things, but rather to focus on the ultimate goal, which is the outcome of my processes, which is my alignment with my higher power, my alignment with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, come what may. Yehuda is willing to descend down into the murky, dark territories where things appear to be twisted and turned and upside down, with all sorts of unconscionable things taking place in accordance with one's visions. But in that place, Yehuda is able to uncover the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In that place, Yehuda is able to find gratefulness, to find gratitude, which is the acknowledgement that Ribono Shel Olam, I have nothing without you. Yosef, on the other hand, is the path of life that demands a severity of experience, that I want things to be one way. There's a rigidity. It needs to be in alignment with how things are supposed to be. Any deviation away from the ideal is a descent down into something worse than the real. It's a descent down into failure and shame and busha and all of these different things and these conditional elements of what it means to be a functional person, to be an ish matzliach. And there's a battle between the self. There's these two encounters of taking the self seriously on the one hand, like Yosef Atzadik, of recognizing that the entire world is built just for me. But at the very same moment, taking myself with laughter and as a joke, like Yehuda, who recognizes that Anochi Afar ve'efer, and these two pieces of paper that a Yid has to hold in their hand at every moment. These paradoxical experiences of being the greatest thing and the lowest thing in the world, of having power and being completely powerless, of having desire yet feeling the need to just sit idly where I am. There's a battle that is born out of those two encounters, and it adds to the cloudiness. One does not know how to act. One does not know whether the moment calls for activity or whether the moment calls for acceptance. And we understand the prayer. We understand the demand for the wisdom to know the difference, because there's the path of Yehuda, which is the path of acceptance, and there's the path of Yosef Atzadik, which is the path of action. And the serenity is all about finding the balance between the two of them. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to grant us the serenity, the Yishuv Adas, to accept the things we cannot change in the mindset of Yehuda, of hoda'ah, of admittance, of bittul, of nothing to give, nothing to be other than what I am in this moment, to reveal the light of God and to change the things that I can, which is the light of Yosef Atzadik, who's an Ish Matzliach, who's always trying to fix and orient one to being more than they are. But the important thing is the wisdom to know the difference. And this wisdom to know the difference is preceded by an absolute inability to know the difference. And a person is paralyzed. They're moving in space. We're trying to move every second, yet we're not moving anywhere. So it's this undying encounter and the whole rumbling of the Yehuda and Yosef encounter. These two polarities of the self, these two elements of the self, which in accordance with the infantile desire for an unbridled unity which rests far beyond our grasp, a split like this is going to be very uncomfortable, and it's going to be seen as some unfortunate symptom of a pre-original fall. But when seen in the light of Yiddishkeit, when seen in the light of what it means to encounter the split of Yosef and Yehuda at the heart of the self, what it means is that we come to find that in truth, all of this rumbling and the distinctions between what I am and what I want, and being and becoming and running and returning, and being full and being empty, and feeling good and feeling stuck, etc., etc., and the sadness and the excitement and the joy that are baked into the heart at the very same moment, that we come to realize that it's from within the split itself that we encounter the secret of Vayigash Elav Yehuda, that there's a Pegisha, there's a Yichud. There's a moment where both sides of the self come to realize that the self is nothing other than the dance of the two parts of the self, that the splitness, that the very splitness in which we encounter ourselves and the doubled portion of the self, this battle that one must engage in with the drives that seem to be in opposition to one another, without the oppositional force of desire and the need to push back against desire and develop the qualities of sobriety and seriousness and the ability to apply top-down control on the basic desires of the body. The pulsational force that moves from outside to the inside and from the inside to the outside, those two forces are part and parcel of the same unity. They're revealing something unique that could only come about through Yosef and Yehuda, through the secret encounter between these pulsational pulls that go in opposite directions. Vayigash Elav Yehuda, in that moment of encounter, a person comes to realize that in truth, I've been torn all along. I've been split all along. I thought I was originally searching for perfection, which is a unity, which is without splitness. And every time I encountered splitness, I said, well, I'm clearly not at unity. I have to do something that's going to make me feel unified. I have to use, abuse, whatever it is that brings me to that artificial unity, which is never a real possibility because only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is unified. All along, I've been despising the nature of my experience and my existence, which is split at its core between the Yosef and the Yehuda aspect. But in truth, those are just Megala, the secret of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, which is the secret of Moshe that rests at the core of the mind, which unifies the two polarities of the self. The left and the right hemisphere are unified by the corpus callosum, the das that's machaber between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. The das of Moshe, the encounter with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and my awareness that I am doing exactly what I can do as a human being in this moment that allows these two parts of myself, these drives, to unify together to reveal something new, to reveal a Vayigash Elav Yehuda, to uncover the secret of the self that is born out of the intensity of self, out of the roaring nature of self, which gets tamed from that oros de tohu b'kelim de tikkun, from that intensity of self that reveals itself with a deep calmness, because one is no longer trying to alleviate the split. One is no longer trying to suture the split or stitch it back together, but one is very neatly and delicately sewing things back together in and out, tying and untying, buttoning and unbuttoning, in the secret of Yechudim, and the secret of Chanuch that was Tofer Na'alayim Haya, that he sat and he was a cobbler of shoes, tying in and out, inside, outside, open, closed, expression and repression, desire and acceptance, those two pulsations that rest at the heart of every moment of our experience. When we can encounter that secret of the Yosef and the Yehuda within us that are mechuber biyachad, that are connected through the light of Moshe, which is our best self, then we know how to follow along the singular path in spite of all of the different feelings. We now realize that the multiplicity of feelings and the paradox and the opposition of feelings is not a sign of deficiency, but rather it's signs of life. That to stay in an artificial form of holiness is the opposite of life. It's specifically in Mitzrayim, Vayichi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim, Shavas Reishana, as we're going to see. Yaakov, the secret of wanting absolute unity, he comes to discover that it needs to split. And it's specifically in the split in Mitzrayim that I'm going to come to find the goodness of my experience, Be'ezras Hashem.